Knitting a good swatch is the difference between a garment that may fit somebody somewhere in the world sometime and a garment that is perfect for the person you designed it for. Knitters tend to try to avoid swatching and to consider it a terrible chore, but it's really not that bad. Let's do it together and you'll get comfortable with it.
All right, let's make our very first swatch. I'm going to bring forward the number of needles that the pusher just naturally brings forward. Then I'm going to push half of them back out of work. I'm starting with a number 3 yarn, which should be just right for this machine. So I'm going to start in the middle of the stitch size dial, knit across using every other needle, and hang this comb. I just adore these combs. Now, if I bring every other needle that was out of work but should be part of the swatch back to work and knit across, I will have completed a super easy cast on. And I'm just going to do a few more rows to get the knitting going normally. Now, I have stitch size 5 on the dial, so I'm going to make 5 eyelets as a clue to myself where I am. 3. The eyelets are made by transferring one stitch to the next needle and leaving those needles in work, which I ensure by pushing them back into working position. And I'm going to knit several rows. Now I want to do a couple of things. My goal is to have enough knitting to measure 4 inches of it, because that makes a more accurate swatch than a single inch does. By the way, if you live in a country that uses centimeters rather than inches, that's 10 centimeters. And it looks like I'm really at a pretty good stitch size right now. By the way, I always use the term stitch size rather than tension for what goes on the dial, just to be very clear and distinct, so that tension for me is what goes on at the mast, stitch size is what goes on at the dial. It does look to me like in order to get 4 inches to measure, I need a few more rows. So we'll just do that before we do anything else. Now, I don't think I want this fabric any tighter than this. I'm just now at the feeling matters through stage. It's possible I might want it looser. So how will I designate that I've changed looseness? I'll make 5 eyelets again, starting on the left side, because I'm still at stitch size 5. 4, 5. But starting on the right side, I'll make 1 eyelet, because I'm going to use the dot that's between the 5 and the 6. And this 1 eyelet will indicate to me that I did that. And now let's knit a few rows. I should definitely have plenty to make 4 inches now. I'm guessing, feeling this fabric, that one of these two is going to be fine for me. So I'm going to quit with the Patons Astra. This is a number 3 yarn, and the machine knits that right in the middle of the dial very nicely. It'll also knit number 2 yarns, I understand, and number 4 yarns. So what we're going to do next before I get off of the machine is try a number 4 yarn, which this is. My comb is back in place. I'm threading my number 4 size yarn in, and I know this should take at least 2 whole stitch sizes larger than the number 3 yarn. I'm going to go with stitch size 8. Alright, we'll take a look. I would say that's just fine for many things. For stuffed animals and hats, I would like that fine. For capes and sweaters and shawls, I would want it looser. And I forgot to make my eyelets. So I'll have to remember that I was at stitch size 8, which is not a good thing to do to yourself. But let's go ahead and make 9 eyelets now, because I'm going to move up to stitch size 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I'm going to put these all back in work, but because I'm working with the yarn on the thick end of what the machine wants to do, I'm going to bring everything out to all the way forward and let the machine knit it back. That saves some work on the machine. Let's have a look. Yes, very nice, a little bit softer, and I can easily see that I might even like to knit this one at stitch size 10. Just FYI, I believe this is Red Heart with Love, which is infinitely nicer than the somewhat cheaper Red Heart Super Saver. So if you want an economical yarn, it needs to be washable, etc., etc. All the reasons people want cheap yarn. 5, 6, 7, 8. 2 more. I'd really say go with Red Heart with Love instead of the basic one. It costs only a little bit more, and it's at least twice as nice. So let's make some stitch size 10. That should be plenty to get my 4-inch swatch. It's got a very nice hand to it now, and I have 2 choices. I can bind off, but if I think I might need this yarn in my project and want to unravel it, it would be more efficient to scrap off. So I have a little scrap here, and we'll just use that. To scrap off is an older term that machine knitters used to use. It's shorthand for remove the work on waste yarn. And you can see back when everything was printed on the yarn label that we had to save space. So scrap off takes a lot less words. And now I can ravel back when I feel like it to my live stitches. Now, am I ready to measure this? That's a trick question, and the answer is no. I should do 2 things first. 1, I should let it rest, because being on the machine creates a certain amount of distortion in the fabric. 2, I should wash it and dry it with whatever method I would use on the finished garment, because if it changes, I want to prepare for that while I'm knitting the garment and take that into account. So let's do that and come back and measure when we've rested and washed.